right, welcome everybody to our AllVoices webinar on celebrating Hispanic Heritage Month and Latinx employees 365 days a year. I wanted to just give a thank you to everyone attending and also for all of our panelists for being here today, as well as AllVoices. So Hispanic Heritage Month is basically, it runs from September 15th through October 15th in the US, and it was first celebrated nationally in 1968. So since then, this month has been dedicated to recognizing and celebrating the Latinx community. And we've really seen companies lean into and acknowledge and honor this celebration, which is great, right? So today on our webinar, we're going to discuss how this month is celebrated and how Latinx employees are empowered at work 365 days a year. As I mentioned, the webinar is hosted by AllVoices. Huge thank you to them for inviting me and the rest of our panelists here. And for folks who aren't familiar with AllVoices, their mission is to create and maintain healthy cultures by helping customers collect, manage, and resolve employee feedback in a psychologically safe way. So I'll introduce myself and then I'll have our panelists introduce themselves. My name is Clarissa, actually, but I go by Claire Olivares. My pronouns are she, her. I'm in the revenue L&D space at HighSpot. So basically I am the senior manager for our sales methodology programs. And I'm also the co-lead on our Hispanic at HighSpot's ERG. And I'm located in Brooklyn, New York, and just really happy and excited to be here. So I'd like to introduce our panelists. If you guys can share your name, your pronouns, the work that you do at your organization. And I'd really like to know why you said yes to being on this panel. So Los, we'll start with you.
Hey everybody, my name is Los or Carlos, and I am currently on the people team as a sourcer for GEM, which is a talent acquisition software. My pronouns are he, him, and the reason why I decided to do a panel is because I wanted to be able to tell my story, be able to hopefully motivate and inspire folks who come from similar backgrounds like myself, and as well as putting a spotlight on our culture, on our cultura. So happy to be here.
Love that. Amanda.
Hello everyone. Can you guys hear me fine? Okay,
perfect.
And just a small comment, my cat just started meowing, so it happens, right, when we work from home. So if she jumps, don't get scared. She's just needy. I'm a Brazilian mom living in Colorado in the US for 10 years, but born and raised in Brazil. I work as quality project manager at Philips in the ultrasound business. My degree is in pharmacy biochemistry, and prior to Philips, I held several positions in quality management systems in pharmaceuticals and medical devices. My passion for connection and belonging is what brought me here today and brought me to the employee resource groups that I currently support as a board leader, which are the LatinX and Philips Empowering Parents. And I'm very happy to be here exchanging our knowledge about the ERGs and strengthening our Latinx community.
Love that. Thank you, Amanda. Margarita.
Hi, my name is Margarita Gutierrez Nunez. I go by the pronouns she, her. I am a vice president in corporate communications at Nomura, which is a Japanese financial services firm. They're situated out of New York. I reside in Brooklyn, New York. And I am on the diversity steering committee of LEAD at Nomura, which is the Black and Latinx employee resource group. I think the reason why this called out to me was because of representation. I think everything about our voices, top down, bottom up, however you want to put it, is about speaking, being heard, and having all of the stories told, because everybody has a way to connect to it. And we need that now more than ever.
Yeah, stories are so important. Thank you, Margarita. Janice.
Hi, I'm Janice Bella. My pronouns are she and her. I'm a senior associate at law enforcement legal response at Chime. I'm also a co-lead for Chime Research Group for Chimegos. I work really close with law enforcement and ensure the safety of Chime members at our platform. I work for a startup, so I wear multiple hats. It's been great for my career development as a co-lead for the CRGs. For LatinX Chimers, I'm very proud to work for a fintech company that places high value for our culture within the organization. When I was asked to be part of this webinar, I was very excited. There's many reasons why I wanted to take part, but mainly the reason is I'm from a very small part of the South Texas, and Claire can relate to this. I'm from the Rio Grande Valley. You can look it up. I grew up in a town in Rick, Texas. I attended to the university in that. It's the Rio Grande Valley, the University of the Rio Grande Valley. Mainly, I can tell you I'm first generation. My parents are very supportive, but my main goal was to expand my career and to share my experience with generations to come. One of the main things is I was very blessed to have staples in my career development. And one of the things that my parents have always told me is to pay it forward. I wasn't told how to do FAFSA. I wasn't told that I had to do an internship. And so I've been blessed to have people, great leadership. And so that's mainly why I was here. And I think this is a way to pay it forward and pave it for my generations in the Hispanic Latin community. So this is why I'm here.
Amazing. It's a good purpose. And yes, I grew up in South Texas too. So haven't met many people from RGV. So good to see that. And Brian.
Hey everyone, my name is Brian Martinez. My pronouns are he, him, and I work at True Religion as a training and communications manager. I also lead community engagement and diversity. So I said yes to being on this panel just because I believe it's really important to be able to uplift my community and be able to have this wonderful discussion about our heritage in the workplace. So it means a lot to me. And I know, and I've been able to see through my work, just the amazing reception from the employees and the company just around celebrating our cultures. So that's why I said yes.
Awesome. Well, thank you, everyone. And so before we get started at the top of our webinar, we just want to ask one of our panelists to share her philosophy and data around intentional language, for example, Hispanic versus Latinx. So we really want to recognize that change is constant. And like most things, this is something that's deeply personal. There's not a right or wrong answer. A conversation of preference is required. So Janice, can you tell us your thoughts around using the words Hispanic versus Latinx?
Yes. So, kind of piggyback off of what Claire said, we've recently, seen the popularity with the word Latinx. Mostly, let's call it a term. There's been a lot of discussion. We see it on social media in the Latino and Hispanic community. The term continues to change from generation to some generation, from Hispanic to Latino to Latina and Latinx representation in the community. And then this sounds repetitive. There is no right or wrong answer, the term you define with. We are such a diversity community that is made up of so many different countries, backgrounds, and cultures. But this is what makes us so, and I don't want to say the word different, it's unique. We need to embrace it, it's so enriching. We don't check one box, we check multiple boxes. So there's some, we check all box, 3 boxes. One box is Hispanic, people that originate from Spanish-speaking countries. Box 2, Latino, people who descend from Latin countries, but they don't necessarily speak Spanish. Box 3, Latinx, a gender neutral, but at the end of the day, we all make the same community. But even if you check one box, we still are part of the Hispanic Latinx community. So we have the opportunity to share what terms that you're comfortable with. So let's support each other and educate our community and others about our culture, background to pave the success of the generation to come. So as a company that I work for a startup and future generations to come, going forward, Latinx might be, and I say might, I do not want to pick a side because maybe I check all 3 boxes from coming from descendants that might hit all 3, but gender neutral is something that is very important to me personally. So Latinx is the word that I probably will use the most, and that is the word that my company used. So that's where I stand in that. But, going back where my parents are Latin and Hispanic. So that's where I wanted to share and just make sure that everybody feels included.
Thank you for covering all of that. And I think it's such an important way to just ground us in this conversation. Just, whatever works for you is it's your preference. I know my parents didn't want to go by Chicano when in the 60s. And so it just depends on what you prefer. But thank you so much for setting us up there and having this conversation. So to just open the panel up, I just want to talk about Hispanic Heritage Month and honoring this throughout the year. And just thinking about what are some ways that you would like to highlight how your companies, people on this panel, and leaders are really authentically honoring Hispanic Heritage Month and not just, checking a box, but really just trying to bring awareness around issues that impact our community. So I'll hand it over to Brian, Margarita, and Amanda. Go ahead and whoever wants to start.
Yeah, I can start. So at True Religion, we really do want to make sure that we represent cultures in the most authentic way possible. So with us, before we plan anything or do anything, the first step is that we talk to our employees directly. We see how they want us to honor their culture. And then this year, what we actually did based on that feedback is we did have an event at our corporate office where we utilized all Hispanic vendors. We had an all Latina mariachi band. We had a folklorico dance group come out. And some of our employees have never seen a live mariachi band or folklorico dance before. So it really allowed all of our Hispanic or Latinx employees, right, the opportunity to share the cultural meaning with their peers and have that discussion during those performances, which was really nice. So you could see the smile on their faces when kind of educating and sharing that information with their employees. So that was really wonderful to have. We even had, non-Hispanic members get up and dance with our mariachi band, really showing a respect to the event and the celebration. So being able to, honor Hispanic Heritage Month is really important for us. So we made sure that it was, authentic to what our employees wanted. And I would say that, we honor Hispanic culture every day of the year. We are a very diverse group of employees. But Hispanic Heritage Month just allows us the opportunity to really celebrate it above and beyond. But yeah.
Love that. Margarita or Amanda?
Yeah, I could take that. So my firm really does it up this month. We try to really make the office as a whole feel like, we take all nationalities, everybody's uniqueness, what everybody brings to the table very seriously for the sake of inclusion. And so we have a lunch and learn that's happening tomorrow, which is 2 of our senior members are coming on, and they talk about everything from when they first started, their plight throughout other firms. So it kind of feels like we get to learn from them and talk to them about how it's been. We're also having another moderated panel next week with the president of St. Francis College. We also wanted to highlight how much higher education means to underrepresented communities. So we're constantly not only celebrating it, but we're constantly trying to say this is something that needs to be uplifted and be brought forward. So that's something that my firm is constantly working on.
That's great.
That's so nice. Very rich ideas. I love the dancing presentations and the mariachis ones. Really good, Brian. Here at Phillips, we are celebrating in a hybrid event. So we have Cafecito happening in Colorado Springs, one of our sites. Today, we had actually 2 sites offering lunch and learn sessions with Hispanic heritage leaders. Today, the one that I was able to join hosted in Cambridge, the leaders specifically talked about STEAM, the women in engineering, and how the LatinX and how we cross the line with engineering and women in leadership positions. So it was very data rich, not good data because we are not nearly as high in numbers as we could be, being women in hard science fields. We are having a fun movie review event called the Encanto Movie Review. So it was a Hispanic Heritage movie that touched many of our parents at Philips. So we thought that we would bring a collaboration between these two ERGs, the Philips Empowering Parents and the LatinX, together to brighten the day with some discussion about this movie. And I think overall, Philips, as the other two companies seem to be, are very diverse. So it's actually the very first company that I work here in the US in which my accent was never the first question at the table, because everyone has an accent from somewhere else in the country or outside of the US. So I feel very fortunate to be able to collaborate for this company in this type of events. I will say we are not celebrated in the 365 days of the year. We have a lot of work to do to raise the bar and increase the numbers of Latinx in senior leadership here at Philips. But we have a ton of initiatives going on, which I'm going to speak shortly in the next questions or two.
Yeah. And thank you for pointing that out, that it's a continuous effort, right? It's not a one and done, but just constantly working to be more inclusive and to hire more diverse people. So excellent. And those mariachis and folklorico dancers, what a treat. That's awesome, Brian. Amazing. Thank you. So also just around when you're talking about awareness and education, to go to, Amanda's last point. So how has, and we'll have Los answer this question, how has your company created meaningful awareness and education for the employees?
Great question. Yeah. So in regards to like education and being able to, give the rest of the company an overview of, our heritage, they definitely put a spotlight on every Heritage Month, right? So like this month being Hispanic Heritage Month, we definitely have a spotlight on Hispanics and being able to be, introduce a new Hispanic American or Latin American in our all hands, which happens weekly, to give an overview or education, or, just being able to have folks understand like, hey, we've been here, right? Like we're not a monolith, right? We're not a new thing, right? We've been here. We've been part of success here, and so we've been able to highlight great people in the Hispanic community every week, as well as putting on various events hosted by our Latin ERG, virtual and physical. Really depends, right? And then so for the most part, our company GEM has been really supportive in that regard, right? Our Latin ERG is really leading that the way in regards to like making those events happen, putting up slides, educational purposes. We're playing Loteria today, actually, with everybody, whoever signed up. We have like about 60 folks. So it's going to be like the biggest Loteria I've ever been on. So super excited about that. I wish I could have sent frijoles to everybody, because that's how I used to play. But I'm super excited about that because that's something that our Latin ERG is going to be hosting. And everyone is just super proud to be where we are at, because I feel like GEM is really leading the way in regards to diverse, like looking for Latinx, BIPOC, and we're trying to be that one company that is going to be, like, hey, we can do it, everyone can do it, right? So yeah, I mean, that's what we have. Loteria, we've had a panel as well. So and the support from the company is like, it's one of the best things too.
It's amazing. Yeah. So building that awareness, building that education year round, getting that exposure to the culture. I want to also think about the changes that come as a result of this awareness, the changes in policy specifically. Like, so a Latinx ERG leader, Amanda, I'm wondering if you can share an example of how you changed or even initiated changes in policy or just non-negotiables at your company around this topic.
So yeah, that was when I was going to give a really long answer and include one of the initiatives that I'm really proud to be part of the design here at Philips is a mentoring program. We are actually not the first ones. I would say we are the third ones, because the mentoring programs in Philips started with the Philips Women Lead. I love one of the reflections that was actually posed in the chat on race and how these ERGs are all weaving race and gender identity together or apart. And but the fact is, mentoring programs were officially in a more structured way at Philips, promoted beginning with Philips Women Lead. And in the past 2 years, we had the Black employee resource groups paving the way for focused Black employee mentoring programs. And for the LatinX, we are the third ones taking a stab at having a dedicated program, because it helps to bring awareness of future leaders for Philips and increase diversity in the positions where decisions are made. So we see, and then we increase the presence of different heritage, Latinx in particular, up to middle level management, but then senior management, it drops drastically. And we wanted to change that. So this is one of the programs that I am helping, and this ERG is supporting at the moment. And I'll segue to the Philips Empowering Parents, because this is also another ERG that I care deeply, and it's taking care of our policies. So we are being very vocal about what can we do to standardize our policies when it comes to family leave and parental leave. And our hope is to make it a more gender neutral, in which both genders can take equal amount of time off. We know that this type of policy involves, it's highly regional based. So we have a lot of labor regulations behind in each country that could prevent us from making a ton of progress. But the senior leadership at Philips is willing to listen and to support in any way they can. Non-negotiables when it comes to the ERGs, I think it's a volunteer-based activity. And I try to be involved as much as I can, but at times this comes to be an obstacle. I can't be in 3 places in 3 meetings at the same time. So I guess when it comes to supporting my community at Philips, I also have bills to pay and a work to do. So it becomes non-negotiable if I need to drop the volunteer activities for the time being, depending on the state of my project. I don't know if that answers your question in this sense, but it's something that I am actually eager to learn from the other panelists. How do they juggle the volunteer work of being an ERG leader and promoting belonging as an ERG leader, and with the regular duties?
Yeah, I think that's something we can either address now or we can wait till the end as we get through some more questions. What are your guys' thoughts? We'll save that to the end. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead. We'll get there.
I was going to say, you know, the one thing that I found, and I've been doing this for about 3 years and more, and previously at other places, at other jobs, was not necessarily doing it ourselves, but we also started getting memberships, like a membership to CUP, the Council of Urban Professionals. I think the thing is, it's the kind of where you seek the resources, because we did want to do it all of ourselves. We were young. We started in 2018. So the version of us being like, well, we've got to affiliate ourselves. If we don't know, seek it out. But feeling like we were trying to feel very internal and create it, it was a lot of time, and it still does. For a person who's got, you know, I'm a mom, I'm a daughter, I'm a wife, all of it, and you find yourself being really overspent. But there's just, I mean, for me, the version of feeling like we kept wanting to do other new memberships, and we are, you know, lead is Black and Hispanic, feeling like we wanted to just align ourselves, you know, more appropriately for the sake of just research, like how, you know, teach us how to then teach on. I think that's the best that we thought of.
Yeah, and I think what and Amanda, you touched on this too, is just all of these things are a lot to do on our own. And I think that it's so critical that we have the support of our managers and leadership, right? Which you both touched on, like that creating that space and that structure is so crucial for all of us in order to make these choices and have this attention on our culture. And it's very hard to do without that support, right? So I want to kind of use that to lead into another question, which is, Janice, if you want to take this, how do managers intentionally support Latinx employees 365 days a year? And it's kind of what we've already been talking about, but what can you add to just the managers that you've seen and how they've supported you maybe, or how you've supported others?
Yeah, for sure. Like I said, I work for a startup. My team is very small. And not trying to be a brown noser. My leadership is on this call, so shout out to them. Definitely. I have one of the things that I do want to touch on is that my personal experience, I have been very blessed. I am Latinx, and it is, you know, they get to share that their background. It is very different. Most of my team has an Italian background, so they talk about how their family, you know, came and they were also immigrants, and they share that. So that does make me feel, and you know, not so much, it's like they ask about how my family was here, so that also, you know, and it's touching base on how it's a little bit different, but it does share, like, it's not so much different, but they are very supportive. And I'm going to touch base on the Loteria. I do a lot of events. Loteria is very popular at Chime. This year we weren't going to do it for Hispanic Heritage Month. They were like, what, you're not going to do Loteria? And I was like, guys, there's a lot of programming this year. They're like, no, you have to do it. We had to squeeze it in there. So Los, I completely agree. We have to do it again to close off the holiday. So I was like, okay, fine, we'll do it again, guys. Well, we have to close it up. So they do support it. They, you know, we had a project. It was a cross-functional project, and we were working with a team that their first language is Spanish, and they found out that I spoke Spanish fluently. They embraced it. It was very empowering. They shared it. The project was way more successful than we expected. And they highlighted, you know, it was because Janice was bilingual. So that was really nice to know that it was something that was, wow, you know. And, you know, growing up somewhere that most people were like, even though we were so close to the border, it was like, oh, you speak Spanish? You go to Mexico? And it was like, I wasn't embarrassed, but other people were. And I'm like, why are you embarrassed? Like, it's now it's like, hey, that adds value to my professional career. You better believe that I speak fluent Spanish. So that's a way that my leadership embraces it and empowers me. And sometimes I catch myself calling my grandma on Sunday and I forget words in Spanish and I say them in English and she's like, ¿qué? And I'm like, I don't remember. And that's something like, I really need to work on it. So I tend to, I don't know, and I think you guys can relate on this call. You tend to kind of go and look for people that speak Spanish because you don't want to forget how to speak it fluently. And when I do Loteria, I speak Spanglish and everyone thinks it's so great. And I'm like, if my grandmother would hear me speaking like this, she would be so upset. So I find it that also that they're supportive of me being part of the CRG, but it does, you know, kind of interfere with your role. So we have this joke, we call it our side gig because it is another role that we take on, but we have to prioritize what we were hired to do. And it's kind of a balance. And sometimes, as much as it is my passion, I find myself doing it on the weekend, but I also have to figure out work-life balance, right? But they are very supportive. And, you know, like I said, you know, they shared this event and it was great. They do support and understand, and they love to hear about my culture. My grandmother sent my manager, you know, a bunch of snacks, and they want her to teach how to do tamales, and she's totally for it, right? She would do it. So that's one way that they do embrace it. And, you know, we have conversations of the struggles that a Latinx person has in the workplace, and also a woman of color. So it doesn't make me feel different. It makes me know that they know how it is. And that is very empowering. And I mean, what more can I ask for, right? And so going back to a lot of the panelists that talked about, it's like working for these companies, it's like they already know and they're trying to make a difference, but it is a constant, you know, we have to keep doing it. We have to keep doing it, but sometimes we also have to balance on our other action, you know, our role that we have to do. So that's what we touch base on. What, you know, everybody is touching base on what we're talking about. So it is very relatable, everybody. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's such important work that ERGs are doing, right? That you sometimes you do have to do it on the weekend. You do have to find out how to balance that time. But I think you touched on something really important. There's, you know, the question was leadership support, and you're like, there's a difference between support and empowerment. Like they're empowering you, which I think is huge, and I love that. So it goes beyond that. Brian, so I know you've been at True Religion brand jeans for 7 years, either internally or externally. What are some of the patterns or changes that you've seen folks do to honor Hispanic Heritage Month in terms of your leadership, or the changes that you've just seen throughout the company in those 7 years?
Yeah, I've definitely been here for quite a long time. So I've seen a lot of changes. One of the things I think that I really have seen a change, I would say, is in the past 2 years. The HR team, like my HR team that I work along with, obviously, we really get it, like as a whole, and we really support each other, and find ways to ensure that we support all of our employees. So I think that's been a major change for us. Even in my role, you know, I'm now focusing, you know, on community engagement, diversity, and I just had no idea how much our employees really wanted that, and how much they really needed it, because that's something we just didn't have previously. So, you know, they volunteer for everything. They sign up for, you know, any option to help. They're open and welcome education. They contribute to ideas, and to discussions. So I think that's been a major change. We've also been able to provide them with a podium for employees to talk about themselves, and share who they are, which I love. Like I love the opportunity to go up to one of our employees, and I'll use Hispanic Heritage, right? Because we're in this month, but it's any of these months. But you know, like walking up to one of my Hispanic employees and asking them about their culture, about you know who they are, right? I think for them, it's one, they get to see that, you know, I'm not afraid to ask them about their Hispanic heritage, because I think for a while that was, you know, a concern, right? And that I have this genuine interest in it, which, you know, shared commonality and getting to learn about their families and their you know, different traditions and different foods, and really allowing them that opportunity to really share that, that genuine conversation. Really, I feel it impacts them a lot. And I want to make sure that, you know, I know we talked about it previously, but the Hispanic community or Latinx community is made up of so many different cultures and traditions and languages. So it's really important that, you know, that we are able to amplify their voice so that they can be heard. And being able to do that really obviously melts my heart. So you asked about patterns of change. I think for us, it's that whenever and whatever people want to discuss, we allow them that opportunity to do so authentically, and we just help provide them the mic, right? So with their permission, we share their stories, we share their photos. So we do this wonderful thing where we email out, you know, what this month means to them, right? So what Hispanic Heritage Month means to them, or what's something that you would like to share about your heritage or your family journey or your story, or something that you would like your peers to know about you. You know, so with their permission, obviously we do that internally and externally, and that enables the broader company to feel represented, and in turn feels a sense of belonging. So even for me, like working in HR, like it's not just my job, like this is like it's me, right? It's who I'm passionate, it's what I'm passionate about. and sharing stories. You know, it makes me feel good. And I love that we can freely have conversations where we really do get to share those backgrounds, again, because it's really important for everyone and every ethnicity to be able to find their commonality. So I think that's the biggest change for us.
It's amazing. I love that provide the mic. That's beautiful. They provide the mic and allow you the space to do that and the platform to share your stories. So important. I want to open up this last question to all of the panelists, and we will pause for questions from the audience as well. I know there's a few in the Q&A, so we will have time for those. But I just want to ask everyone on this call, like, what is your call to action for leaders, companies, really anyone, to honor Hispanic Heritage Month and to empower Latinx employees 365 days a year? Brian, I'll start with you.
Yeah.
If you want to add on to that? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing is, you know, representation matters, and we've all said it on this call. So creating an environment where your employees can see themselves in every level of the organization. I think that's really important, and that starts with leadership making the intentional or being very intentional in their actions for hiring more Latinx employees, and then also promoting Latinx employees to positions where they have a voice, where they can make a change and really impact the organization. I think that by doing that, you really foster this culture that allows people to share their stories and be their true authentic selves, because they can be seen. Yeah.
Thank you. Janice, what are your thoughts?
Brian, I completely agree with you. That is something that was a definitely eye-opener as working for such a progressive company when we were looking for a second executive sponsor for my second term as a a co-lead for the CRG. We had a great sponsor the first year, but she stepped down as the CFO, and we needed another one, and we didn't see any executive that was a Latinx representation. We ended up finding one, which is great, and that's when we were like, oh my gosh, and so that's something that Chime was able to recognize. And another thing, and it kind of goes back to the question you previously answered, was one of the things that we set ourselves as a leadership is, kind of giving more representation on our leadership. We realized that everybody was, Mexican. And I said, we need to switch this up, because, which was great. We loved it, but we had so many different members that made up Chimigos, and we needed to celebrate everybody else. There were so many different things, but we did mariachi, we did loteria. And I was like, okay, we have so many people. So it is very difficult to convince, hey guys, we know it's more work, but can you please be part of leadership? So I really put up my persuasive skills, and I'm like, please. So we did have, we had somebody that was Venezuelan, and I was like, I was like, please. And so they really helped us. I learned so much. I was like, I had no idea. So one of the things that we really focused this month is we have been putting different flags, in our Slack channel, and we're like, does anybody know what this flag is? And I'm like, and if you're from this country, please do not answer this, right? Because we want everybody in something simple like that. We're like, please let us know, and just some educational way. And then we did pupusas. I didn't know you could put different things in empanadas, little things like that. It just went such a long way. And we did the same thing. We sent, surveys. And of course it was like, share us, what do you want people to know about your story, about your culture? And it was just like, that's one thing that I was like, this is what we're doing. And that was like how I wanted to, change it. And different holidays, I necessarily didn't want to, Cinco de Mayo, but we did it last year. Let's change it up. We did loteria. I didn't know the history why we played loteria. I learned why. I was like, oh, interesting. I had no idea. So that's what we focused on. And if I would have, if I was if I had to say so, there's certain holidays that are not acknowledged. And it's like, they should have that holiday off, So that's something that if I had to say so, I would definitely be able to, share that with leadership. And it's like, hey, there's certain things like we have 4th of July off. Why can't, something be else acknowledged? So that's where, I would have the call to action if I was, and let the leadership know there's so many things that, you're meeting us in the middle. So that's my part that I would take on for, you know, call to action for the community. Mhm.
Awesome. Margarita.
You know, I think that a big thing is self-identification. I mean, my company brought it on because we talked about how there's a lot of checking of boxes. Everything from LGBTQA to the Black and Hispanic Employee Resource Group to we have an employee resource group that's called ELF. That's employee life and family. But checking boxes like being a woman of color, um, an ally of color, of anything that defines what these different checking of boxes, but self-identification, feeling like you're asking people not just what you're telling them you want to know, but you're asking what do you want to share. I think that concept of saying I want you to tell me because we need to be sensitive. We need to discuss the differences, the similarities, how you're feeling that we need to address them. Are we addressing it well? I mean, fact check, you know, read the room. How are we doing? I think all of that is something that not only has been happening more as I hear from other firms, but something that we need to broaden. We need to make that something where it goes back to bringing your authentic self to your seat, looking around and feeling like you're saying, I'm this and I'm that, and I'm also that, and I'm also that, because that comes with a wealth of knowledge and opportunities that you're not only bringing to your role, but to the firm.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for that. Amanda, what are your thoughts on this?
So it's so hard to beat the three previous answers. I agree with them in so many levels, but I will go with Janice, and it's one of the things that I'm trying myself as Brazilian, because as you may know, being in the US for longer than I would assume many of you, either born and raised here, first generation. So Brazil is like set aside in the Hispanic heritage realm. And if you look at the history, it was not even in the political discussions, in the stage, fighting for this a month to be even recognized. So, which is interesting because we are all Latinos, Latinas, Latinx below Ecuador, right? And what I'm trying myself and to educate my colleagues here at Philips is get to know a culture, get to know a country that you haven't heard before. And one of the examples I gave for my Colorado folks was we kicked off the Hispanic Heritage Month with the Colorado University in Denver area, offering like a full day of presentations, country-based presentations. So we had Panama coming with their dances, then we had Mexico coming with their dances, Venezuelans, and República Dominicana. So I highly broadcasted and talked about this all over the place because it's neat, and it's not all about tacos and the culture appropriation that people tend to mingle and just merge all of it, right? Oh, everything is about tacos, and it's not. So learning the nuances of each culture would be my call to action for this month.
It's a good one. Los.
Yeah, I mean, at the end, I echo what everyone on this panel has said, right? I don't think there's much for me that I can add on, but I would like to say, you know, representation matters on all levels, right? I think that's something that Brian brought up on all levels. I think me being on the talent acquisition side, on the people side, is something that I explain to my team, that diversity needs to be intentional. Like when we are outsourcing, when we are recruiting, diversity needs to be intentional, needs to be on the forefront. It can't not just be a natural thing, because at the end, we are not given the opportunities as our other fellow folks are, you know, and is something that I like to talk about, like networking, right? Like growing up, I didn't know anything about networking. right? It wasn't something that was taught to me. Being a kid in the LA school district, or not even going to college. I didn't go to college. I didn't know anything about networking. So we have to be intentional when it comes to, like, recruiting or sourcing our Latinx or BIPOC. And that's something that I would love to see every company take, be intentional about their sourcing. And also something that Amanda and everyone else said, be mindful of other Latin cultures, right? We're not all, and I think I said it before, we're not a monolith. Latin is not a monolith. And we don't fit in all, we don't all fit in the same shape. We come from different backgrounds. We come from different colors. We have blonde, blue eyes. We can be black and really curly hair, straight hair. We come from all sizes, all colors and sizes. So we're not a monolith. We don't fit in just one regular slot. So be mindful of everyone's Latin cultures. Tamales are not tamales everywhere, right?
Yeah.
So
And
you can't expect people to be like, hey, what's your favorite tamal? And someone's like, well, what's a tamal? And then you're like, wait, and then
it's pamonha in Portuguese. It's something else altogether. Yes.
exactly. Just be mindful of other Latin cultures and being able to be willing to learn, right? I think everyone, we have all exciting and beautiful cultures, beautiful traditions, and it's quite a journey being able to learn about all of them. Take the time to learn about it, and then you'll be amazed with what the commonalities are, but then the differences as well.
Yeah, definitely. Educating yourself and just being mindful. So important. Thank you, Los. So we wanted to look at some questions. We've been answering them in the background. There are a few that came up. There are a couple more that are still on the board. We had one that was sent to us that asked, in terms of authenticity, if you're celebrating Hispanic Heritage Month for the first time, what should you be doing, or what should the intention be? In the same token, like if you're celebrating for the 10th year, what level of depth should you be demonstrating? So just thinking about this for the long term, Hispanic Heritage Month, if you're just getting started, what should the intention be, and how do you ground yourself versus, like, if you're in year 10, how deep would you go for that? Anyone?
So I'm going to take that one. So I think when you go to year one, I think the first thing you're looking to do is probably a divide and conquer. It's understanding that whether it be Hispanic, Latinx, however you want to define it, that you're bringing it's resources. It's going out for knowledge. It's understanding South America. It's understanding, how Brazil is included. It's all of it, because everybody's like, really? It's all of it, from the language to the food. I mean, it's all of it. But it's starting with little bits. It's feeling like you're just going, different little small aha moments, and then saying, oh, okay. As it progresses and you're going to like a year 10, I think you're obviously year 10, you're deep diving into a little more of cultural appropriateness and stuff like that, because you're going toward people, and you're going, especially when you're talking again about like talent acquisition, or you're from the hiring perspective, you're talking then about feeling like, because anybody who, how to pronounce a name, anything like that, means you're bringing that into the firm. You're starting from like baseline, although you're in year 10, you're bringing it to how I say your name, how, we're, that kind of thing. The conversation starts, but you're taking it from that part, meaning I've learned X over the 10 years. So I'm bringing that to the conversation in the simplest of ways. You're just honing it for me.
Yep.
That's a great answer. Honing it. Awesome. I also want to hit on Teresa's question in the chat here. This one's for Brian. And she asks, thank you for your question, Teresa. She asks, how does your personal background or beliefs show up in the conversations you have with employees and or the initiatives you mentioned that True Religion Brand Jeans does throughout the year?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I think for me personally, I'm Mexican American, and my family's been here forever. So there was a portion, several generations ago, I know we talked about it earlier, where we tried to hide a little bit of who we were. So I think that we lost some of our traditions in that process, and it wasn't really passed down as much. So I think for me personally, being able to have these discussions and get a better understanding of my culture that I maybe have missed out on growing up on, and allowing people to kind of share their stuff. So like even for example, like in our office, even in our distribution center, different places, like if there's a major soccer event going on, people will rally behind their peers and their coworkers. They'll wear their same jerseys for the soccer day. They they share like that pride for each other, which I think is beautiful. And then even the like certain, I know someone talked about holidays, same thing. For King's Day, we have a lot of our employees in our office are Mexican American or Mexican first generation here. So they'll bring a king cake in. They talk about the importance of a king cake and what that means. And they talk about like, oh, there's also little tiny baby inside, and for us this means if you get the baby, this is what it means for us. Or some people it's XYZ. I think that's definitely been something that we can kind of see throughout the organization. It's kind of continuing, and I think it's just like a really wonderful thing. So I think to kind of answer that question, I think it's a little bit of me, but also kind of what we do at the office and how we allow everyone to be able to kind of share who they are and share those initiatives. And we do this with all of, every month we showcase different groups and different things. So Asian Pacific Islander Month, we did the same exact thing. And it's bringing in food, talking about their heritage, talking about, their journey to the States and, or what it means for them to be here. So yeah, I hope I answered that question.
Awesome. And it looks like Amanda, you answered a lot of the questions in the question and answer part here. That's awesome. I wanted to just see if there's anyone here who in the audience who had any more questions that were not submitted to the Q&A, just to make sure we hit everything. Pause for a second here. Okay, just making sure.
Yeah, great questions from the audience. I couldn't resist.
No, I love that. That's great. I was looking at Daniqua's question. She said, I'm struggling with, we have a pretty good amount of Latinx team members, and we recently supported them in putting on a few events for Hispanic Heritage Month. I really want to, it was amazing. I really want to create an ERG for this group to continue fueling these types of things, but I'm struggling to get someone to step up and lead the group. Any thoughts on this? And Amanda, you responded, you're a board member in 2 ERGs,
yeah.
right? And it's hard to get traction. So does anyone else have any thoughts on how to get people to step up and lead these ERGs and do this important work? Any of the panelists, sorry, I should have clarified. Go ahead.
I can say something on that, because I know that I think what's really helped with us is we've really jumped in and asked all of our employees like what we can do to impact the community that they're in. So whether if it's like even smallest things like a high school basketball team, right? And it's like, hey, like we want to be able to support you. Like, what's something we can do? Like, we come from a very minority background area. My son plays in basketball team there. Can we, can you help with that? And I think that once we were able to kind of like find those fun things that we can help them on, at that point they really jump in whenever it's necessary for like, hey, we're going to be doing Hispanic Heritage Month, do you want to jump in with this? Like, we want to get your information. We want this diversity committee to come through. Like, do you want to be a part of it? And they can see like the impact that we've done small piece-wise, and they can see the bigger picture of like, oh, if I can join this and I can be part of this, I can really shape what we do moving forward. So I think, us getting into their personal life, if you will, they're what they're really passionate about, and finding that they're a little more apt to join and to participate, if you will.
Yeah, and I think I would add that to the answer that I tagged is looking for the events and promoting events that is of their interest, right? So, like, it goes with the example that Brian gave you. And another piece would be having senior leadership support. So our first event at Philips, our North America market CEO is Brazilian. His name is Vitor Rocha, and he was very active. He's currently our sponsor as well. but he would come to events and speak about his career, and it was and continues to be one of the most memorable events because the audience was able to connect, and then from there it sparked the interest and engage. Oh, I can be that type of person, I can get there. And then we had 3 to 4 new members joining after that. But buy-in, I would say, like sponsorship from executive leaders and having events with them at first are great ways to gather interest, because people in corporations, especially big corporations like Philips, they want to hear what the leadership has to say about where we are heading, but like the ERGs bring the opportunity to see their vulnerable sides, their personal sides, and like, oh, they are just humans like me, like yourself. So a couple of thoughts on that. And then when it comes to social media, I'm not sure what would be your circumstances in your corporation. Like if you have a strong inclusion and diversity DEI organization, leveraging their platform as much as you can to bring awareness to the existence of the ERG. But it's not easy. Like everything seems like flawless, but it's not easy. Like our LatinX ERG in North America currently has 220 members. And every month, like Hispanic Heritage Month is a struggle to get enough hands to help us in our sites. So as I mentioned, we are throwing certain events in certain sites, and not all of them at Philips, because we don't have enough hands to bear the events in each and every single one of our sites.
Awesome.
I hope this helps.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Keep it up, Russo.
Yeah, so we have I want to be mindful of time. We have about 1 minute. I saw Janice had her hand up. Did you want to share something in the last few? Oh, it looks like you're muted.
Swag helps, guys, that's for sure. Also, we had a tequila tasting during Hispanic Heritage Month last year. That helps also. Interest, but one of the things that we really did, we tried to help out with career advice and financial literacy, going back to, we didn't grow up with that. We don't know, that's not something, being first generation graduates. So targeting something that's going to help the professional growth and financial, that's something that sparked interest. And then, you kind of see the people that take on that leadership to help. We do pillar leads first, and kind of like, we see, and then we of course will be like pillar lead, and then it's like, are you ready to be a co-lead? And then that will help you kind of grow your your Chamigos, for us, Chamigos membership. And we have a lot of allies, so that's something that helps. So that's my suggestion. But swag helps. And also, now that we're going back to the office, is also helping, because you throw in those events in the office. So those are my suggestions. And you can always add me on LinkedIn, and we have some great events, and we have a workplace team that they come up with some really, really good ideas. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Thank you, Janice. And that was in response to the question in the chat on Loteria prizes in a remote environment. So thank you.
Yeah. We like to give prizes, giving back to local businesses. So we gave credits to give back to the Chicago Museum, and they bought gifts from the museum. There, sorry, awesome. Claire, to interrupt you.
No, you're good. No, that's awesome. That's important. So I know we're over time. I want to thank everyone for being with us here today, for being part of this conversation, for watching. Feel free to share out this recording with your friends, share this on social media. Thank you again for just being a part of this conversation. We really appreciate it. So thank you. And that's about it for today.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, everyone. Nice to meet you all. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks.
Bye.